Tucker Carlson posted an interview with Andrew Tate, and it rocked the Twitter sphere because a lot of leftists were getting mad that Tucker Carlson pulled in 46 million views, and then leftists were like, "Oh, but you don't know how many of those views actually watched the entire video." But when you click on a video on YouTube, and then you look at it, you're like, "Oh my God, this has 100 views." You don't look at that video, right, when you're just looking at it on a separate account. You don't look at it and say, "Hey man, of those 100 views, how many of them actually watched the video through its entirety?"
Right.
And I think it's just a way for leftists to diminish the accomplishment the accomplishment Tucker Carlson is having.
Yeah, it's cope.
Fox News. It really is copium, yeah.
Yeah.
And just to point out, even Elon Musk, who's been relatively quiet about Andrew Tate, retweeted the video and he said, quote, "Interesting interview with Cobra Tate." And I think it's an important thing because not only is Andrew Tate kind of, I don't want to say alt-right in terms of how he's covered in the media, but what is the correct term? I would put Andrew Tate in the category of You know what? Actually, he's in his own category. It's hard to describe.
I would probably say that Andrew Tate is alt-right in the sense that he is alternative right-wing, which is to say, kind of like what Jordan Peterson used to do and still kind of does. He focuses more on the plight of men and how it's very gender-oriented, I would say, and it's very focused on like how men can improve their standing in the current society that we're in. Whereas I would say the mainline right-wing response to our modern day society is traditionalism, at least for conservatives. And then the alt-right response is like the racist alt-right response is like a genetic analysis, these people inferior because they are, and shut up, that kind of thing. And so you can almost think of Andrew Tate as like an alt-right, which is kind of a mouthful, but I mean, hey, it's
alt-right. What the fuck?
alt-right, yeah.
That's such like, that's so weird to say. Alt. Like, what the fuck?
Alternative of alternative, right?
Alternative. Well, it's kind of counterintuitive, no?
Yeah.
Like,
okay, I got you.
So
it's like oxymoron. He's kind of right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Control alt right. Control alt
delete right.
Control alt delete right. Real.
What?
Yeah, real.
Yeah. Anyways, just from that, let's just watch a small clip that's kind of getting traction.
Do I have to?
Yes. It's about Andrew Tate commenting on war and if there are any good sides in war. It's
by the way,
point.
I just want to say here right now, I say none of this to sugarcoat or really like even value Andrew Tate at all. I am not a fan of Andrew Tate.
I love Andrew Tate. I want to like rub his head. Like one of these days.
Yeah, I know you want to rub something else.
Feel his head, bro. Like,
yeah, I know you want to feel something else.
I wonder how a bald person's head feels.
Interesting.
Like, see me, I want to like feel his head, and King Chao and Kaika want to give him head. You see, it's like
I mean, okay.
I don't see you guys denying it, so.
Well, I see you talking about how you want to feel things of Andrew Tate, and I think I kind of.
Yeah, but like you're also wanting to give it, so it's like.
I never said that actually.
Yeah, but you never denied it, so, and you're still not denying it.
Yeah, well, you're putting words in my mouth. I know
well,
that
Andrew Tate's gonna put something else in your mouth.
God. God. Never fucking ends. Okay, let me watch this.
You're about to fuck something, man.
Bro, enough. Hold on,
let's watch this.
Yeah. I, up until this point, never really commented too heavily on politics.
Yes.
But I understand very well, I like to believe what's happening with Ukraine and Russia. And what I will say to the people who are watching this at home is that if you are naive enough to believe that there are good guys and bad guys in wars, and it's as simple as good and bad, and that the bad guys are crazy, and the good guys want freedom, then you need to do a little bit more investigation into what's really happening. And when you look at the vested interest of any country or any
Can
person.
I just ask you to pause and just comment? That's the truest thing, what you just said. That is and anyone who doesn't understand that should shut the fuck up. And I mean it. Having seen war, anyone who's telling you that it's Churchill versus Hitler is an idiot.
Complete. Well, I'll give you an example. When my father was still alive,
I am conflicted.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, I think that that's generally good advice. You know, we look on, you know, the history of all wars and all conflicts, and you know, the fact of the matter is, you know, there are ideologies, and you definitely can agree with some and disagree with others, and in that way, you can assign moral value to each side. You can say this one's good, this one's bad. But the fact of the matter is, you know, all wars have nuances. It's not all just, you know, black and white. The other thing, and this is the contradictory part, is Andrew Tate specifically said this about the context of Ukraine versus Russia. And I think if you are dogmatically siding with either Ukraine or Russia without even really considering the events of the war, I don't know, maybe this applies. But I think it's also possible to look at the situation and analyze it from a perspective of, you know, geopol and from the perspective of diplomacy, and you look at, I guess, the facts, and that is that Ukraine was, you know, it used to be a part of Russia when it was the Soviet Union, and then it split apart when the Soviet Union collapsed, and it tried to be, you know, at least partially, you know, a capitalist country, because communism scarred Ukraine. I mean, there was the Holodomor as the, you know, the pertinent example. It was literally, you know, a genocide by famine. And, you know, if you read up on the Holodomor, it is horrifying. I genuinely wish I did not learn as much about that as I did. But it is one of the greatest you know, tragedies and one of the greatest assaults on mass human life, up there with the Holocaust and the famines of Mao in communist China. So we can all agree that Ukraine definitely did have a reason to separate from Russia when the Soviet Union collapsed, and then it tried to be its own country. And then Russia just came in and just said, there are Nazis in Ukraine. We have to denazify Ukraine. Special military operation, only going to take 3 days. And the fact of the matter is, if they really did have the moral high ground at all, in this war, they would not have to cover it up with a fake excuse of it being not a war or an invasion, but a special military operation to denazify Ukraine, right? Well, because there you go, it's all about the Nazis. It is not just. It is an invasion of a sovereign country, and the people of Ukraine deserve to govern themselves. They separated, they exist as their own body, and I do believe that the Russia invasion of Ukraine was unjust. And honestly, I don't know how you can't, at least to some extent, if you know what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, if you know the history, how can you come away from that believing that Russia is in the right? And then there's all of the actions of the other countries in this war. And, you know, I personally think that we've spent way too much on helping Ukraine. But that doesn't mean that I think that Ukraine is wrong. And yes, Ukraine has its own problems, but at the end of the day, this isn't about Ukraine or Russia as their validity as countries as much. It's really about first-rate principles that we do not believe as a country who has separated itself from a bigger country in the past ourselves as revolutionaries, that it is okay when that bigger country comes in and invades you. Like, when in history has that really been okay, that's pretty much the driving factor for like almost all wars. It's just pure avarice, and it has no consideration for all of the lives lost in that pursuit for more resources. It is an animalistic pursuit. It's not animals. It's not people. It's nations. But it is animalistic behavior, and that it is purely self-interested, and it is. I guess I sort of believed that perhaps in the 21st century we would be past that, at least mostly, but we're not. And the Russia-Ukrainian war proves that is not the case. If you are Andrew Tate in this situation, or hell, if you're Tucker Carlson, I can't believe I'm saying this because I kind of was rooting for Tucker Carlson back when he got fired from Fox for the January 6th leaks, the documents. I was on the side for that, but this is an L for Tucker Carlson and for Andrew Tate. If you can just sit there and say that you need to shut the fuck up if you basically, if you pick a side in this war, and if you think that side is good and the other side is bad, that you need to shut the fuck up. How? Like, where is the argument? Where is the pro-Russian argument? Really? Because it really just seems like in-group preference and dogma. And, I accept that perhaps that my argument is dogma as well, but I guess mine comes from history, and it comes from an established moral principle that countries shouldn't be allowed to fucking invade one another and slaughter their populations. And I don't care if it's, supposedly denazification. It's not. That's a smokescreen. It's always been a smokescreen. I don't know if you've noticed, but the whole denazification thing never came up after those 3 days were over. Everybody accepts this is an invasion. It is an invasion, and it is against the sovereignty of the country. And so, in this situation, I support Ukraine. And I don't think that I should have to shut up for those beliefs.
Well, I don't think that's what he's saying. I think you kind of missed the point. What Andrew Tate was, what Andrew Tate was saying was it's not as simple as black and white. So even though, Russia is invading Ukraine and they're committing these atrocities, it's not like Ukraine is also not committing atrocities. When we were in Vietnam, and we were getting kind of bombarded with these guerrilla fighters, it's not like we were using non-messy tactics in Vietnam. We were also committing atrocities. I mean, just look at napalm. But that's besides the point. I think his greater point of it not being black and white is true in all wars. And that's not to say that, some desperate measures need to be taken, and those desperate measures are always bad. But it is to say that both sides are not pure and innocent.
Oh, I was not trying to suggest that Ukraine is entirely innocent. And if that was all that he meant, which I don't believe that it is, but if that was all that he meant, then I guess fair enough. I don't have any strong objections.
You worry about leaving a better planet for our kids. How about leaving better kids for our planet? Entire generation offended at everything, getting mad that a human thinks all lives matter. We don't need black or white or left or right. What we need is common sense. We need balance. We're all in the same boat. Why you trying to make holes? If they sink, we sink. This is madness.